Welcome to the Sunday morning meditation service. Daily word for today is I think and speak with clarity. My mind is an amazing part of my being. I practice connecting it ever within me through prayer. In so doing, my mind functions with increasing clarity. Anything that brings me closer in awareness to my Christ nature enhances my clarity. I can do simple things like sharing time with a loved one or encouraging someone on their spiritual journey. Giving of my time and talents develops clarity of mind and heart. Living in the present helps me see with greater understanding. Well, we're going to be doing a chant, a call and response. And I felt like doing a native kind of chant this morning, only because I feel like the earth needs to be recognized as in need. Am I going to make it with this?
Get it, bend it out just a little.
Bend it up? Oh, too technical.
There it is.
Okay, thank you. So this is a call and response. Oh, Great Spirit, the earth is sacred. Every tree, every shore, every mist in the forest, brings us peace evermore. We are part of the earth, and the earth is part of us. Grant us strength to do our part. As keepers of the earth. Oh, Great Spirit, hear our prayer. Make me aware. Oh, Great Spirit, hear our prayer. Make me aware. We are one. We are one. Oh, Great Spirit, hear our prayer. Make me aware. You did not read the web. You are merely a strand. What you do to the web, you do to all make me aware. Holy Spirit, hear our prayer. Make me aware. We are one. We are one. Oh, great Spirit, hear our prayer. Make me aware. Oh, great Spirit, oh, great Spirit, the earth is sacred, the earth is sacred, oh, great Spirit, the earth is sacred, oh, great Spirit. The earth is sacred. Oh, great Spirit, the earth is sacred. Oh, great Spirit, the earth is sacred.
Good morning, everyone. It is very easy in our fast-paced world to misperceive certain things taking place. I remember some years ago, we were in the church on Spruce Street, and this young mother showed up. She had a son about 9 years old, and he would come to the services, even though the Sunday school was there and available to everyone. He would always come to the Sunday service and listen to me speak. And this went on for a couple of months, and I thought, wow, this 9-year-old is really in touch. He's interested. He wants to get in touch with something truly valuable. And then after one of the services, the lady with her son came up to talk to me, and the son said, "Do you think you'll ever run out of words?" The thought was terrifying. But I thought he was really enjoying the words. Snotty little kid. Anyway, I've always considered, the ministry that I'm involved with is about helping people to enter the kingdom of God in the here and now. And that's, of course, better interpreted as the consciousness of God here and now. So there are many ways to try to bring this idea into the awareness of people, but it really comes down to an act of faith, an ongoing act of faith that people will step into practicing the ideas, opening to the ideas that actually transform the consciousness, transform the mind. So that's what it's about. That's what true ministry, I believe, is all about. If in some way people can become inspired to step beyond their comfort zones, their intellectual places of understanding, and step into doing something different, approaching life in a different way. And that takes faith to do that, because we've been so long operating in a certain perception that our point of view, each person thinking his or her point of view is correct, and that each is thinking he or she is an objective observer of life, and that's about the extent of it. But it is not. And so there has to be a transformation, and the transformation requires faith. And there are certain things that we have misperceptions about. Today I'm going to speak a little bit about work. I'm going to start with this quote. Oh, this tree is here again. I know I have arrived when somebody moves this tree out of my way. How about this leaf? Am I going to see anything here? All right. John Burroughs, in The Art of Seeing Things, the secret of happiness is something to do. That's pretty cogent. The secret of happiness is something to do. And it comes down to work. He'll speak about work in life, working. And most of you know that I've been involved in many, many different kinds of jobs, some of them very bad, awful jobs, before I came into the ministry. But I think along the way, there was always something that can be gained from the work that I was involved in doing that. And I know for certain there was a period in my life where I couldn't get work at all. and we already had one toddler, and we were living in New York City, and I couldn't come up with a job for about 3 or 4 months, and I think that was about the most depressing time of my life. And there were other factors involved in that. You'll read about stuff like that if you read my book, but it really a certain depressing time in my life. And the masters down through the ages have always pointed to the idea that work is part of the human experience. If you don't think about it as some kind of an intrusion on your happiness, and that does happen a lot in the way we are raised, in the way we think, especially in the Western culture. We think that, to have to work is an imposition of some kind. And so when we're doing the work, we're not really in harmony or feeling the best we could feel. And of course, the concept is to not think in terms of work as some drudgery, some intrusion on your life, but to give it a higher place in your awareness. Let's have this next PowerPoint, please. I think it's from the light from many lamps. Few persons realize how much of their happiness is dependent upon their work, upon the fact that they are kept busy and not left to feed upon themselves. Happiness comes most to persons who seek her least and think least about it. It is not an object to be sought. It is a state to be induced. It must follow and not lead. It must overtake you and not you overtake it. How important is health to happiness? Yet the best promoter of health is something to do. Blessed is he, her, who has some congenial work, some occupation in which he can put his heart, and which affords a complete outlet to all the forces there are in him or her. Can we take this back again, please? Few persons realize how much of their happiness is dependent upon their work, upon the fact that they are kept busy and not left to feed upon themselves. Happiness comes most to persons who seek her least and think least about it. It is not an object to be sought. It is a state of mind, a state to be induced. It must follow and not lead. It must overtake you and not you overtake it. How important is health to happiness? Yet the best promoter of health is something to do. Blessed is he, her, who has some congenial work, some occupation in which he can put his heart and which affords a complete outlet to all the forces there are in him or her. A blatant example of this is one I use occasionally. I have many, many different examples of this that I've used. This is one favorite thing that took place when Norma and I were vacationing at a Mexican resort. It was Shangri-La was the name of the resort. And I had signed up to go scuba diving that one day. And I was out about, 8 o'clock in the morning, because they were the scuba diving boat, was supposed to pull up on the beach. And the pool itself was right there, right next to the beach. And so I was sitting at the pool and waiting for the boat. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. I think I was meditating somewhat. But then about 6 or 7 people showed up at the beachfront bar right there as well. And they were involved in drinking Bloody Marys and smoking cigarettes. And what I could hear of it, they were involved in talking about the difficulties and the problems with the world and the country and the different things that are going wrong. And in an extreme comparison to this, these people were drinking margarita. They were waiting to go scuba diving as well. Crazy, but, you know. At that point, I already had a whole different outlook on life. And to see that, how different they are in their approach to living than I was in my approach to living. But even so, at that exact time, there were 3 Mexican servants of the resort who were sweeping off the sidewalks around the pool and the patio at the pool and clearing the tables and preparing them. And they were all, those 3 were communicating with each other. A short distance away, they were sweeping and doing their activity, their work. But they were so enjoying it, laughing and carrying on and quipping as they were sweeping, as they were cleaning. And there was a certainty that the people waiting for the scuba boat and drinking margaritas, not margaritas, actually it was Bloody Marys. Did I say margaritas? It was Bloody Marys. So that's a notch up for them. Certainly they were financially better off than the people that were cleaning around the pool. But when it came to happiness, there certainly was a more open happiness in the people that were working and probably had less financial income. And I guess that wouldn't be a complete proof of the fact that work is a blessedness, except that everyone in that group that went diving that morning were eaten by sharks. No, it didn't happen that way. But it's still a good point. Down through the years in the ministry, you learn to deal with every possible type of difficulty in life that people show up with. And you can easily see that quite often the problem people have is that they're not really involved in losing themselves in something that absorbs their attention. They spend a lot of time concerned about their difficulty. Their attention is on their problem or their problems. And it seems that people that are either out of work or not seeking work have more time to stew in their difficulties, and it becomes exacerbated and more problematic for them. And I can tell you that over the years I've spoken to many different homeless people, and when I do, sometimes have to ask, relevant questions. Not too long ago, there was a guy searching through the dumpster, and obviously he was a dumpster diver looking for food. We had just had a potluck or something, and I guess he saw some, food containers or things in the dumpster. And he was about 30 years old, and he looked fairly healthy and wan. He was fairly intelligent when I got to speaking to him. And I asked him, why are you eating out of a dumpster? There's certainly some place you can get a job and get some money. He said, no, I don't like to work. And it's an interesting thought. I've heard that thought a number of times from people that are not want to work. I don't like to work. And it's an interesting point because I suspect that most people would say, who aren't in the upper echelons of life, who are popular and making a lot of money and spending. But a lot of people would say they don't like to work. And the fact is that it's a state of mind that promotes that thought. You can actually learn to like any kind of work. There is. I've had some of the worst jobs any human being could ever have. And I'm not going to go over how many of them that I had that were terrible, but you'll read about them in my book. In fact, I had the worst job any human being could ever have. And you have to read about it in my book. It was part of my important transition. But I used to work at O'Neill's Balloon in New York City, a bar, as a waiter, bar and restaurant, as a waiter. That was not a great place to work. And you've heard about that a number of times because it was so frenetic, crazy. We were right across the street from Lincoln Center, the ballet, and the opera when it was there. So you'd have these two different companies, and they'd break at different times for their break. People would actually rush across the street for a 20-minute break and try to get drinks, and some of them would try to get things to eat, a hamburger or something. And then they'd rush out, and it was chaos. It was total chaos. Waiters just couldn't keep up with what was taking place, and waiters would steal your stuff out of the window when the cooks had gotten it up. You know, they would take your stuff to their tables, and it was just not a great place to carry on a harmonious lifestyle and work. But, and I got to thinking that I hated that job so much when I would go in to work there. But then I found a way to enjoy working that job. And you must think, well, that's a long time ago. Jack actually did that job 40 or 50 years ago. So I was even, you're thinking, I was even enlightened then. No, what I came up with is with the first break from the opera or the ballet, people would leave half their drinks, I'm talking about mixed drinks, alcohol, on the tables, wine. And I got with the other waiters and said, you know, instead of throwing it back in the kitchen, just drink it. And then you find that the next break coming up will be a lot easier to handle. You really enjoy the work you're doing. And so we would get pretty well high on the drinks that were left behind. But then I found out later on that it was a state of mind. Actually, you could take a terrible job like that waiting job, and you wouldn't need the wine to just do it wholeheartedly. Now, that was just an insight then. Since then, the truth of life has become more apparent in my awareness, and I know that whatever one does wholeheartedly, giving himself or herself to the doing of it, will make that job easier, it'll go quicker, and it'll be more rewarding in doing it. This is something that we can try, but it comes down to the whole idea that work is really a blessed thing to get involved with when you do it from that wholehearted point of view. So let's check this next paragraph. This is Charles Kingsley and Madam How and Lady Y. Thank God every morning when you get up that you have something to do which must be done, whether you like it or not. Being forced to work and forced to do your best will breed in you temperance, self-control, diligence, strength of will, content, and 100 other virtues which the idle never know. That's a very powerful and interesting point. Being forced to work and forced to do your best. Today, there's a there seems to be a big problem that you hear being talked about on the news stations, on the radio, that people are not involved in doing the jobs that they're hired for. They have already mentally quit that job so that they don't have a connection to getting it done well, in a sense. They're simply going through the motions of doing as little as possible. And so there's a whole state of mind now that they've recognized, that employers have recognized, that production is not going as well as it should and as it used to before COVID. And here's one of the reasons why. A lot of people were placed on the dole when COVID showed up and people were laid off, and they were also sequestered. The government gave out money to people to get through the COVID difficulties, and they extended unemployment beyond. They kept doing that till people were out of work for long periods of time. And what happens when that happens is that you lose touch with reality. Human beings, for the most part, really do need something that's required of them to do. There's no two ways about it. If you were to examine the records of psychology and investigating people's states of mind, you would discover they also found out that people who are attempting to remove themselves from the necessity of doing things that they don't necessarily want to do or would love to do, but most often have to get it done. Those types of people that are trying to avoid work and stay out of work, will have a neurosis, will have a problem, will have mental difficulties and relationship difficulties. Now, I don't have the evidence on this, I don't have the journals on this, but I can tell you from my experience in counseling people over the years, I have noticed that people who simply have an aversion toward getting into their work have an aversion with life. They're not present enough to enjoy life and see the beauty of it and the glory of it. So I want to get this last PowerPoint in before we go on. There is a perennial nobleness and even sacredness in work. Were he ever so benighted, forgetful, or of his high calling, there is always hope in a person that actually and earnestly works. In idleness alone is their perpetual despair. The latest gospel in this world is, know thy work and do it. In order to take this to heart, and you might want to share this with some people you know, there is perennial nobleness and even sacredness in work. Were he ever so benighted, forgetful of his high calling, there is always hope in a person that actually and earnestly works. In idleness alone is their perpetual despair. The latest gospel in this world is, know thy work and do it. Okay, if we're very quickly going to sum up this particular talk by going over that handout you should have received when you came in. I hope everybody received a handout. Did you receive a handout when you came in? Oh, you can give me one. I didn't receive one. I think this is pretty good because they found this handout in a dumpster at the Methodist Church. This is unbelievable. Okay, can you turn the lights up a little bit so people can see what they're doing? All right. Okay, let's just think through this together. This is something that you can apply this week. And if you apply it 1 week, you will see a difference in it. And you'll probably want to stay with the attitude that this promotes. Whatever needs your attention, give your wholehearted attention to it. Whatever needs doing, do it wholeheartedly. Your work, whatever it is, do it wholeheartedly. Better even than you've ever done it before. When you have free time, relax wholeheartedly. Play wholeheartedly. Or play wholeheartedly with your children. Or play wholeheartedly with your pet. Or hang out wholeheartedly with your friends. But give yourself to it instead of being mentally engrossed in something else. Learning to be present in everything. Learning to be wholeheartedly present in everything will transform your life. It's what the spiritual journey is all about. In short, wholehearted devotion to any of the above will help you transition from ego-centered isolation to magnanimous, open-hearted joy. Don't scrimp on giving support and serving the good in life. Try this for 1 week and you'll stay with it forever. And not only that, you'll learn how to spell too. We're going to take a few minutes to do something that is the most important thing to do, beside being wholeheartedly involved in your work. Be wholeheartedly involved in your spiritual practice and in meditation. Because even though we may not feel something significant is taking place when we're meditating, that there may be more important things we could be accomplishing, let me say this: meditation is the gateway. If you are practicing meditation, you don't even have to be practicing it in a meaningful, really wise fashion. It is moving. You are taking time away from the incessant thinking. Eventually, the thinking becomes less intrusive, and you start to open to an awareness that is so pleasant, so fulfilling, that from that particular experience on, you will look forward to meditating. Because all of that which takes place in the world is, in a sense, against the true expanded nature of human beings. So meditation is the gateway to a whole new life, a beautiful life in which you still participate in the world, but you're no longer driven by the changing tides and circumstances of the world. So we're going to do some meditation now. We'll listen to these Tibetan bowls that will open us up. And while you're listening to them, you should know this: the outer-directed, illusion-driven, unmeditating world, people in that world seldom feel okay. Imagine that. They seldom feel okay. There's always something else they think is needed. Something's missing. Something's wrong. But what we are sharing here is the way to transcend the illusionary thought you are conditioned to believe in the world. So if you start, you can just start now as you listen to the bowls, to give yourself permission to be here feeling okay. just feeling okay, not wanting, not fearing, not judging, not grasping, just saying, hey, I'm sitting here. You can use that as an affirmation. I'm sitting here and doing nothing is okay. You may want to use this mantra in the silence. I am wholeheartedly doing nothing, and it is okay. I am wholeheartedly doing nothing, and it is okay. as we go forth from this meditation to those places we occupy in time and space. Let us be more mindful to be wholeheartedly engaged in living. To be wholeheartedly engaged in living. For this opportunity in every moment, we give thanks. To this we say, Amen. We will take an offering for unity now. And those of you who are watching this on live stream, show us some love. Hit the like, subscribe, or share button. Message a friend, write a review. Thank you, but also consider making a regular tithe on a regular basis. Sign up to make a regular tithe, something you can afford to give to Unity of Boulder on a regular basis. Just contact the church and they will arrange it with you to do that. It would be very appreciated. There are so many things that are required for us to do to operate this large organization and this physical building. So I'm asking you to be conscientious enough to say, how much can I give on a monthly basis? And you'll feel really good about it, and it'll be very helpful to us here who are holding it together. So for now, let us all bring to mind that financial gift we'd like to make to Unity of Boulder, and let's bless it with this offering prayer. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, because I give. So it is. We have prayer partners among us. If you have a particular challenge, you want to pray with someone about it, just remain seated as everyone files out, and a prayer partner will come to you where you're seated. Share a prayer with you there, or if you want to, you can walk down to our beautiful meditation room and pray together down there. We will also have our discussion group right after the service in Fellowship Hall. If you want to stay, if there's anything you want to talk about, you have some questions about unity or this service, just stick around. You can pick up some tea, coffee, and some treats that we have, and join us in our group and share in the discussion. Santisha will be present for the 11 o'clock service. This is the book that will be available in 2 weeks, and I'll be doing a special Sunday book signing service, which you will hear more about as we go along. And is there anything else we have to cover? That's it. To everyone, have a beautiful day.